What'd you say about kids?
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We'll get started. Call to order the interview session for the Zone 5 board member. Hello? Okay, first is Annalene Pentopoulos.
Hi, I'm Dana. Our first question is, what particular strengths will you bring to this school board?
First of all, I've been in the Dalles for 17 years. Been lots of ups and downs in my professional career, but I'm still here, so I'm very committed to this community. I think probably the first kids I deliver in this community will be graduating high school this year. I think one of the big things is I'm fair. I think it's important that everyone gets a fair chance to do things. I'm a pretty good rule follower. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to change my opinion in my course of action if I get new information that makes it so I should be changing how I'm thinking. Those are the biggest things.
Okay, what do you believe are the greatest challenges currently facing this school district? What do you see the board's role in addressing those challenges? And what do you see in the administration's role in addressing those challenges?
I think there are two. One is getting the bond passed for a new high school. So I think we need to make certain that the community is getting accurate information about the importance of a new high school so that we can get our community on board to vote for a new high school. Unfortunately, when it came up a few years ago, that didn't happen. And so I think we need to do that so we can get this new bond passed, because it's very important that we get a new high school, just in terms of our students, but also in terms of being able to recruit businesses, professionals to the community. Obviously, the administration, again, needs to be a big proponent of the bond so that we can get this bond passed for our students. I think the other big challenge from reading the minutes from the budget committee previously is budget shortfalls, with some changing in funding that's going to be happening in the next year. I think the board's role is going to be helping administration in terms of figuring out where the cuts need to be made in order to least affect students.
Thank you. What does educational equity look like?
It's the intentional allocation of resources, instruction, and opportunity according to need, not making certain that everyone gets the same thing, but that everyone gets what the resources that they need based on their particular needs.
Next is, how do you view the board's role versus the administration's role in running the school district?
The board's role is in crafting policy and setting goals for the school district. The administration's role, they're responsible for the district's day-to-day operations, as well as for carrying out policies and for achieving the goals that have been set by the board.
How would you handle conflict with fellow board members? How would you handle conflict with administrators? Two parts to this question.
Yeah. I think it's the same for both. I would think you need to have open, honest conversations with people. I think if people communicate well, a lot of conflict can be avoided. I think when we make assumptions, that's a lot of times when conflict happens. So I think having open, honest conversations.
Several school board member trainings are held each year: summer school board conference, annual school board conference, etc. If selected for this position, are you willing to participate in these school board trainings as well as any other identified as needed?
Yes.
Complete the following statement. I am a qualified applicant for appointment to North Wasco County school board of directors because?
I'm willing to put in the time and effort on the board to try and make sure that all of our students get the education that they need to succeed, whether they're planning on doing a trade, going to college, whatever their long-term goals are.
Okay, last question is, what would you do when approached by an angry parent or staff member with complaints about a school district issue or employee?
I would tell them that they need to follow the chain of command and try and advise them as to who the appropriate person is that they need to go and speak to.
Okay, that was the last one. Thank you. Next, we'll have Patrick Urain.
First off, I'd like to thank you for getting my name correctly when you pronounced it right there.
All set. Okay, great. First question, what particular strengths will you bring to the school board?
So, Mr. Chair, directors, student representatives, I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here today to discuss what my strengths are related to this nomination. I have years of involvement in community service organizations that has allowed me to develop collaborative spirit, keen interpersonal skills. This has allowed me to be involved in several different organizations, both professional and from a volunteer standpoint, that have really honed my public servant mindset. And I want to really focus on a public servant mindset because I'm not here necessarily today. I'm here today as Patrick Urain, but I'm here representing people across a zone as part of a school district. And that public service mindset is really crucial. And I want to emphasize that is one of the greatest strengths that I am bringing to the school board, representing those people. I have the ability to foster relationships that'll be beneficial, collaborating with board members, educators, parents, students. I'm deeply involved in the community, and I have a background working in public service, and I love public speaking. So one of the things that I can bring to this board is the opportunity to be a voice in the community. I do things like go sit on KODL and talk to Al Wynn, and I love Al, and I'll be willing to do things like that for this board. Yeah, so I think it's a collaborative spirit, community service experience, and public presentation skills that make me confident that I can execute the duties given.
What do you believe are the greatest challenges currently facing this school district? What do you see this as the board's role in addressing those challenges? And what do you see as the administration's role in addressing those challenges?
Sure. I've read this strategic plan. I think the largest challenge facing this board is the full and complete implementation of the strategic plan. And in there's lots of challenges, but I've outlined 3 here that I want to talk to you about today. In reading the strategic plan, I noted that it mentioned security once and safety 3 times. That's inadequate, in my opinion. Everything in that plan falls off of feeling safe, feeling secure in our buildings, in our environment, in the activities that we put forth. So to me, safety and security is a huge challenge that not only this district, every district in the country faces in face of what national trends are. Secondly, I think a necessity for modern and sustainable infrastructure looms large. I was the manager of the pool, the old pool. If everybody remembers the old pool. At the end of my tenure was when that bond first started to go forward. I was not involved necessarily in the development and that initiative, but I can tell you, as a manager of the old pool, it was necessary. And then it was the middle school, or it might have been reverse of that. But my point is, it's the high school today. It's going to be something else tomorrow, and we need to be looking at what we can do currently and what we can do long term to really provide facilities that we can optimize usage, we can make them kind of jewels of our community and make them safe and endure for generations. The third thing I think that I really want to focus on is enhancing public relations is a prominent challenge, I think, facing this board. Boosting the transparency between the board, the administration, the community, really opening the lines of communication, really getting buy-in, building trust with the community, making sure that they understand what are the challenges we're facing, how are we approaching those challenges, what are the solutions that we're coming up with, and the data and the background of how we're doing that so that we can really be clear and we can be transparent, build that trust. And so I think public relations is a really big challenge as well.
What does educational equity look like?
I did skip one part of that last question, but no, it's fine, ma'am. Educational equity, it just assures that every student, regardless of their socioeconomic, cultural, demographic background, benefits from the equitable access to high quality education. So this encompasses things like really studying how are you doing things currently? What are best practices? What is the local culture? What are the local norms? What does the people expect? And really creating that balance between innovative education practices and local culture. And so I think educational equity is a map that we provide and we create.
How do you view the board's role versus the administration's role in running the school district?
The relationship between the board and the administration, I think it can be likened to a collaborative dance where both parties understand their roles. There's a shared common goal, and both parties work in harmony to achieve them. The board's role predominantly centers on policy creation, laying the strategic groundwork that defines the district's vision and objectives. Meanwhile, the administration, their role is to take all that strategy and direction and use their expertise to implement the policies on an ongoing basis. This really involves translating the board's vision into tangible actions. And as I said, in ensuring that this continues on an ongoing basis, managing resources efficiently. And I want to point out that the role is not characterized by the hierarchy. It's more of a synergistic role, as I described in a dance, where there's not necessarily a choreography, but there's a flow, there's a back and forth. It involves mutual respect, it involves trust. And it involves compromise. And so I believe that those two bodies really do create that collaborative dance, and through the mechanisms of mutual respect, trust, things of that nature.
How would you handle conflict with fellow board members, and how would you handle conflict with administrators or teachers?
So I've been a teacher. I've also been a teacher's assistant. But I think the first thing I would do is seek to lessen the conflict with the board members, administrators, teachers, again, by using that outward mindset, using that public servant mindset to actively listen, gain understanding and clarity. I'm sure that, just that in itself is not going to alleviate all conflict, but by using those active listening techniques, it's an essential tool to clearly understand and gain clarity of other viewpoints. And then I think the last thing I would do is seek to find where's the compromise point here, because in every situation, most of the situations I've found in my life, there's a common ground. It's just a matter of, can we engage each other in a cooperative and collaborative manner to find that common ground to work from. If we can find that common ground to work from, then we can solve the problem. And I think that's just a matter of that mindset, being willing to sit and cooperate, collaborate to achieve that. The other thing I would do is, there's an organizational body here, and I'm representing in this position this organizational body. And so regardless of the outcomes of this body, I have to stand by this group, the decisions they make, and not be subversive in the face of an angry parent or an angry teacher, and kind of fall into the trap of confirming, if you will, all of their complaint. Because there's kind of a diplomatic way that you approach those things, right? And that's how I would do it.
All right. Several school board members' trainings are held each year. Summer school board conference, annual school board conference, etc. If selected for this position, are you willing to participate in these school board trainings as well as any other identified as needed?
Yeah, I love this stuff. I really do. I'll attend as many as a good fit for me and this board thinks is a good fit for me, and that my schedule will allow.
Complete the following statement. I am a qualified applicant for appointment to the North Wasco County School District Board of Directors because
my application for appointment is firmly grounded in a public service mindset. It has direct experience working with parents and youth in our community. I have a strong background working with youth, and I believe in part it's a cornerstone of my nomination to this, or my qualifications and nomination to this board. My experience has fostered a mindset and a belief that if I conduct myself professionally and I allow people the opportunity to speak their mind, and I allow myself the opportunity to listen clearly, and again, to find that common ground when there is separation. I have, not only do I believe this is the way that I've operated over my public service career. Lastly, I've been in the classroom as a teacher and as a certified assistant, and those perspectives have given me really great understanding of how the educational system operates, what I think is in the best interest and well-being of the district. That was all?
I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm done.
That's good. One last question. What would you do when approached by an angry parent or staff member with complaints about a school district issue or employee?
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to them, right? I'm going to have an open mind. I'm going to be cautious to validate their concerns, but I'm definitely going to listen and make sure that they understand that I'm hearing you, right? Because again, this gets back to trust. It gets back to that public relations that I talked about earlier. I don't want any parent to think that I'm not hearing you, any teacher. I want to make sure that they hear me. But how I'm going to approach that beyond that is I'm going to make sure I'm hearing you. I'm going to assure you that I am going to take this issue to the extent I can. Maybe it's something that I can deal with directly. Maybe it's something that I need to bring to the awareness of another faculty member, something like that. Maybe it's something I need to bring back to this board, right? And sometimes you just need to stand there and listen to people, get it off their chest. There's really nothing you need to do with it other than just listen to them. So I would use all those approaches if I'm approached. And I have to tell you, I'm the umpire in chief of the local Little League. I deal with it all the time, right? I deal with parents that, because I make judgment calls all the time. My umpires make judgment calls all the time. And people sometimes disagree with those judgment calls. And so I find myself in these positions of having to listen, explain, and kind of work my way through those. So I would do the same thing in these situations. We good? Is that all? Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Andrew Hampton. Here. Oh.
Andrew Hampton?
Yep.
All set?
Yes.
Okay, great. So first question, what particular strengths will you bring to this school board?
Strengths I will bring to this school board. For the last 24 years, I've worked in government. I'm very familiar with doing budgets and dealing with government entities. During that time, I've spent 12 years as a union vice president or president, so I'm very familiar with labor management issues and those situations. Also, in my current job, I spend a lot of time in court, so I'm very familiar with legal matters and dealing with attorneys and those types of things.
What do you believe are the greatest challenges currently facing this school district? What do you see as the board's role in addressing those challenges? And what do you see as an administration's role in addressing those challenges?
Currently, I see one of the biggest challenges for this district is our facilities. Our facilities are old, in disrepair, and need to be brought up to current standards. The board's role in that is to, as the board manages the oversight for the district, can help in building the community's confidence to hopefully get through a bond measure that will help us pass and start moving ahead with building new facilities or repairing the ones that we have so that our students can get the best education that they can. The administration's role in this is to kind of go along with the board's, help the board build those policies, build trust, show that they deserve the trust of this community.
What does educational equity look like?
Educational equity looks like providing students what they need so that they can achieve at the best of their ability, and that is not the same thing for every student. There are different things that different students need. I can speak for my own educational background. I have some severe learning disabilities, and I needed to go and receive help through special education. I had to have tests read to me when I was a kid because I would fall behind and not be able to complete them in a timely manner if I was stuck reading them themselves. So I had teachers that would step out and read the test questions to me so that I could answer them. That's one example of how you work on equity. That all the way to the breakfast that we provide our kids in the school to make sure that our kids have food and are not hungry when they're getting ready to go into the classrooms, to just doing whatever you can to meet the needs of the kids so that they can achieve at the best of their ability.
How do you view the board's role versus the administration's role in running the school district?
I see the board's role as an oversight for the district and to help work with the administration to set policies, and then the administration's role to enforce those policies and do the day-to-day running of the district. But the board's role is to act as an oversight and to be the community's voice in the running of the school district.
How would you handle conflict with fellow board members, and how would you handle conflict with administrators or teachers?
Handling conflict is what I do on a daily basis. I don't know if I mentioned what my job is, but for the last 24 years, I've worked in parole and probation, and handling conflict is what I do every day. With board members and with administrators and teachers, I do everything I could to keep the conflict professional, that we work to resolve things, mediate if we need to, but to always maintain professionalism as we deal with these conflicts, because they're going to happen. There's never a need to raise your voice, to yell. We can have civil conversations, and I would give that to everybody else, and I would expect that back towards me.
Several school board member trainings are held each year: summer school board conference, annual school board conference, etc. If selected for this position, are you willing to participate in these school board trainings as well as other identified as needed?
Yes, I'm in my job. I go to trainings all the time. I could easily fit this into my schedule and make sure I was able to attend any trainings that needed to happen.
Complete the following statement. I am a qualified applicant for appointment to the North Wasco County School District Board of Directors because.
One, I live in the proper zone that you've designated that you need to come from. I've been a resident of the Dalles for a little over 20 years now. I've had one student go completely through the Dalles school system. I have two youth that are currently in the Dalles school system, so I feel that I have good knowledge of the schools here. In my role in work, I work with the schools. I supervise 5 counties for the state of Oregon. I work with the schools extensively in those 5 counties. I mentioned my time as a union officer. I think that is very valuable in dealing with personnel conflicts and mediation, and also just showing my support for fellows in the community and wanting to work together to come to a better situation for everybody.
What would you do when approached by an angry parent or staff member with complaints about a school district issue or employee?
I would listen to what they had to say. I would respond to them as calmly as I could to hopefully bring the agitation down and let them know that they are being listened to. And if it's something that I could answer, I would answer them and try to do the best I can. If it was something that I could not answer, I would let them know that I would bring their concern to the board and that we would address it as we could.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Minnie Gowdy.
Hi. Okay. What particular strengths will you bring to this school board?
Unfortunately, I don't have as much experience in school stuff as much as I would like. My kids came from a really small school, so I'm gonna apologize now. These are prescription sunglasses, so if you want me to take them off, I'm gonna be blind. I now have 3 kids in the Wasco County School District, 2 at Colonel Wright and 1 at the high school. I don't really know what particular strengths I'd bring to the board. Sorry, my printer broke last week, so I wasn't able to print out the questions. I'm very dedicated. I volunteer a lot of my time outside of taking care of my kids. Yeah.
What do you believe that are the greatest challenges currently facing this district? What do you see as the board's role in addressing those challenges? And what do you see as the administration's role in addressing those challenges?
I believe lack of funding is a huge problem. Unfortunately, money doesn't grow on trees. Outside of that, I believe the board is like a family where we all try to find ways to help with funding for the schools, and working with the administration goes hand in hand. We're all trying to work towards the same thing.
Ready for the next one?
Yes.
Okay. What does educational equity look like?
Having certified teachers in every classroom, even for kids that are not like regular kids, special education kids. having teachers specifically for them. It's not all kids learn the same. That was it for that one.
How do you view the board's role versus the administration's role in running the school district?
Well, since I don't know much about big school districts, I don't really know other than we all need to work together. One cannot work without the other. We don't all perform the same duties.
How would you handle conflict with fellow board members? And how would you handle conflict with administrators or teachers?
So I've been running my own business with my husband for about 15 years now. Sometimes we employ up to a dozen people, men and women, mostly men. So sometimes there is a lot of conflict, but mostly listening and validating feelings, trying to mediate would be a good one, I think. Between administrators and teachers, there's a professionalism in there where I don't know exactly how it would be handled in a bigger school district, but listening and being able to understand what's going on both sides and trying to find a middle ground.
Okay, ready for the next one? Okay. Several school board member trainings are held each year: summer school board conference, annual school board conferences, etc. If selected for this position, are you willing to participate in these school board trainings as well as any other identified as needed?
Yes. Outside of coaching several times out of the year, soccer and basketball for both of my daughters, I'm very open to learning how to better our school district in all areas.
Complete the following statement. I am a qualified applicant for appointment to the North Wasco County School District Board of Directors because.
I feel like I'm a blank slate as far as experience. I will learn what is best for our school district, new and improved, rather than having prior experience and trying to do what is possibly holding the district back and not utilizing new ways to help our school. I practice that one.
What would you do when approached by an angry parent or staff member with complaints about a school district issue or employee?
I get a lot of angry parents at soccer and basketball practices and games, so I know a lot about that. Understanding that they're in the right in their mind, they're not wrong, being able to listen and connect them with the people that can help them with their situation. Sometimes it's not you, sometimes it's not the board, sometimes it's not the administration. Being able to connect them with the right people to solve the issue and hopefully better the issue in the future.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Joel Vaught.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right. What particular strengths will you bring to this school board?
I like to think I'm a good communicator. I always try to measure my words and speak wisely in any situation I can. I do my best to listen with empathy. I do enjoy problem solving and working on projects and building things that will last.
what do you believe are the greatest challenges currently facing this school district? What do you see as the board's role in addressing those issues? And what do you see as the administration's role in addressing those issues?
I think one of the greatest challenges right now is the bond issue that we're facing in the upcoming election, and just the general age and the condition of all of our facilities. The board's role in that, I think, is to continue to engage with our community to communicate the seriousness and the weight of the situation that we're in, but not only to communicate the negatives, but to be able to speak and positively look toward the future and what a new school could bring for the community and do for the community. The admin's role in that, I think, is to also communicate the positive aspects of what a new school will do, but at the same time to safely and resourcefully problem solve the issues that we're currently facing right now. I think both parties together need to, again, lean into communication and transparency so that the community knows that this bond is not just a blank check for a wish list of earmarks or to deal with budgetary issues. I think another big challenge would be student performance, and I would just lump both achievement and behavior in that. I think the board really needs to be present in the schools as their schedules allow, to seek to listen to building admins and teachers and assistants and parents and students to better understand the challenges that they're facing that can affect learning and behavior. I think that any policies or solutions or initiatives, they need to be informed by and in response to issues in our own schools and our own community. I think the admin's role in that would be to continue to hold our students and educational staff to high standards of achievement and behavior, but to be transparent about the places that we might be coming up short and to address those issues wisely. I don't think that just more money thrown at an issue alone is going to help solve these problems, but good teachers and good assistants with good training are going to help solve those problems.
What does educational equity look like?
I think that idea is laid out really well in our strategic plan and our equity statement already, but I also think that it means a learning environment in which all students have an equal opportunity to achieve at their own highest potential. Should never think about lowering standards or expecting any less of our learners based on any criteria that we determine, but we can and we should help and support individual learners to overcome obstacles and achieve all that they can.
How do you view the board's role versus the administration's role in running the school district?
I kind of see this as being akin to the difference between a vision and a mission. You know, a vision being the direction that you would like to head in, and a mission being more broadly how you're going to get there. And so I think the board should represent the voice of the community that elected them to these positions, and to work in partnership with the district to craft that vision or that direction for education in the community. And then the administration then has the tools and the skills and the knowledge to support the educational staff in making that how happen.
How would you handle conflict with fellow board members, and how would you handle conflict with administrators or teachers?
We're all unique people. We've got different backgrounds and perspectives and motivations. And so because of that, unfortunately, sometimes conflict is inevitable. But I've found that when I approach conflict humbly, that the conflict can actually bring clarity to a situation a lot of times. But I think that has to start with listening, being slow to speak and quick to listen, taking that opportunity to see what the other side of the coin looks like before trying to explain what my side looks like, and so we can find compromise. I certainly don't hit this mark every time, but I like to try to make that my approach. And I don't know that I would take a different approach, regardless of whether this person is a board member or administration or a teacher. At the end of the day, regardless of position, that's another person on the other side of the conflict, and people are more important and relationships are more important in those situations.
Several school board member trainings are held each year: summer school board conference, annual school board conferences, etc. If selected for this position, are you willing to participate in these school board trainings as well as any other identified as needed?
It would be dishonest of me to tell you, yeah, sure, no problem. My wife and I both work full time. We have 3 kids with schedules and activities and all that adds to the mix. So our life is very full, but I do believe in the importance of a position like this, and I would want to do it to the best of my ability and to learn how to do it well. And so I would certainly make all possible efforts to accommodate things like that into my schedule.
Complete the following statement. I am a qualified applicant for appointment to the North Wasco County School District Board of Directors because.
This year, my wife and I will have a 4th grader, a 7th grader, and a 9th grader. And so having 3 kids enrolled in this district at 3 different learning levels, as well as being married to a D21 educator, I think that gives me a really unique perspective on the successes that our district is having, but also the opportunities that we have for improvement.
What would you do when approached by an angry parent or staff member with the complaints about a school district issue or employee?
I think that people often feel very passionately about educational issues, and so it needs to begin with listening. That person needs to understand that they're heard, and at least the emotion or the feelings they're having about that situation are valid. And so we need to begin there, and certainly a public scene doesn't do that situation any good. And so there would be a time and a place for that person to feel heard and to be heard and have that issue addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, that's all the interviews, so now I'll close the interview portion of this meeting. Do we want to just start the meeting or take a break?
Do you need a break?
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. North Wasco County School District 21 regular school board meeting, Thursday, August 24th, 2023. It is 5:45. If everyone will please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, our first order of business will be to elect the vice chair. I'll open it for motions.
Chair, I'd like to nominate Director Richardson for vice chair.
Anyone else? Get a second? Or do you accept it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I accept the nomination.
Okay, take a roll call vote. Diane Elledge? Dana, sorry.
Here?
Yes.
Here, I'm here. Dana Winillage is here.
Yay or nay?
Yay.
John Nelson?
Yay.
Jose Aparicio,
Yes.
Judy Richardson,
Aye.
and I vote aye also. Congratulations. Next, we have the review and revision of the agenda. Any comments, corrections, or anything to add? Okay, with none, we'll move on to the district mission, vision, and value statement. Judy, you want to read those?
Sure. The district mission statement, educating each student to the highest standards while motivating them to reach their fullest potential and graduating them to be college, career, and life ready. Vision statement, our schools are a place where children belong. Each student is known by name, strength, and need, and provided the education and opportunities to achieve success. Our values, striving for equity, inclusion, and belonging, celebrating diversity, engaging the community, supporting the whole child, and promoting and achieving academic excellence.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. Anyone have any comments about the previous meeting minutes or personnel report?
I had one just clarification on page 1. So we have licensed staff member Andy Cotting, and it says retiring. I'm wondering if that should be resigning because they're then moving to PE teacher at Innovations. Is that the correct verbiage, I guess? Retiring versus resigning?
All right. It's a retire, rehire.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Chair, I'll move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Do I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Director Richardson, seconded by Director Aparicio. Now for a vote. Dana Elledge,
Aye.
John Nelson, Jose Aparicio,
Aye.
Judy Richardson.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Now we have the board action calendar review for August and September. Does anyone have anything on those? Okay, next we'll move on to staff recognition.
I sure can.
I'll turn this over to Dr. Vidal.
I sure can, yes. We just wanted to take a minute to welcome some new members to our leadership team. Shannon Brennan is taking over as our Director of Teaching, Learning, and Assessment. She's in the back. CJ Toole is stepping into the new role we're engaging in this year, Director of Prevention and Intervention. Kim Kaiser will be our Assistant Principal at Colonel Wright. Autumn Lloyd will be our assistant principal at Dry Hollow, and Dottie Ray is coming back to us as our director of nutritional services. So we're excited to welcome them all to the team.
Anyone got any comments? Congratulations and welcome all those to their new spots. Next we don't have any student representative report, right? Okay. So we'll go with the subcommittee reports. Scholarship Committee, Director Illich.
I met with the principal and he walked me around the school, and they're going to keep me informed until the first meeting in the fall.
Community Outreach Team, Director Aparicio.
So there was a meeting earlier this week. I was unfortunately unable to attend, but I did coordinate with members of that team to get representatives from the upcoming school bond pack to present information about volunteer opportunities and involvement related to the bond. So that was presented to that group earlier this week.
Thank you. Wellness Committee, Director Richardson.
Chair, I do not have a report for Wellness Committee.
Equity Committee, move that.
Yeah, we're going to bump that to September. We have the information. We'll be sending that out to the entire board for consideration, what all it's going to entail this year. And then that way you have time to consider it prior to the September board meeting.
Okay, so we'll move that to the September meeting. Wasco County Forest Collaboration, Director Nelson.
So I did attend a meeting last month. A couple of things came up. First thing is we've been working on what's called the road to 27 road to break project. The road 27 fuel break project. So there wasn't full consensus with the collaborative and the Forest Service on this. There was some areas of disagreement, but we're working to come to some resolutions there. The main issue is when you establish a fuel break, there are certain aims, or there's a mission to that, a purpose to that, which is different than if you're thinking about managing those same lands over time for a more sustainable, well taken care of forest. So on a fuel break, it's all about getting money from the government to fight a wildfire that gets out of control. So the whole aim is quite different from managing overall over a long period of time. And that's where the conflicts come because you treat the land differently for those different purposes. And so that was an issue that we've been talking about. And then the other thing that came up is a project that we've been working on for about 3 years. It's called the Grasshopper project. And it's over a slightly different area. And it's all about managing the forest to make it more sustainable and derive an economy, provide a better habitat for all the animals that live there, and also to make it safer for reducing the fuel load and so forth. And to be able to treat, say, riparian areas differently than other areas. And also lake successional reserve areas are treated differently. So there was a suit filed by Oregon Wild, a complaint against Mount Hood National Forest regarding the grasshopper restoration project. And so I'm on the steering committee of that. And so the steering committee members are going to be meeting with an agency called American Forest Resource Council. And basically that is to determine how we want to enter into this trial, either as an intervener or an amicus participation. So the difference between them are, if we go in as an intervener, we have to really state our purpose and our reason for being there in a substantial way. And so you're actually entering into the details of the trial, and you're a participant in it. Whereas an amicus brief participation has a little less involvement. You don't have say over so much in that decision-making process in the trial. So we have to determine how, what role we want to play and how involved we want to be in this trial that's coming up. So those are the two issues that we're dealing with. That concludes my report.
Next, we have OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, Director Richardson.
Thanks, Chair. So the Legislative Policy Committee had kind of a roundup of the year in review. The first one is, please all mark your calendars and plan to attend the Legislative Roadshow. It's on September 25th at the college here. They go around the state. These are our OSBA representatives, go around the state, and they want to hear issues specifically relevant to our region and our region's the Gorge region. It's also an opportunity to hear from them, to find out what's happening in Salem and what they anticipate in the upcoming years. That's September 25th at the college. Secondly, the OSBA, along with COSA, completed their 2023 legislative report, and there were over 100 bills this last year that impact schools in Oregon. So it'd be pretty hard to follow all of those. Luckily, we get a bit of a digest from OSBA. You can find the full report on their website under the legislative report for 2023. And that report lists all of the bills, House bills and Senate bills by number, and you can go in and find on the bill site of the legislature the exact wording of the bill if you're that interested. Just four that are really notable for us. The first one, House Bill 2753, permits a district school board to offer members a stipend of up to $500 per month, and requires districts that do not approve a stipend to reimburse expenses incurred in the performance of duties. So that was a hot topic of discussion at our recent summer convention that we'll talk about in a minute. House Bill 2805 makes changes to Oregon's public meeting laws, specifically relevant to school board operations. House Bill 2806 expands the topics that qualify for public body executive sessions. That includes all public bodies, to include safety concerns of a public body official, staff, facilities, and cybersecurity details. So that's new. And lastly, House Bill 3198 establishes the Early Literacy Success Initiative. And this Early Literacy Success School grants, there's over 90 million with a 25% required local match available to school boards to apply for and include in the budget. So this could be very exciting if this comes to us. And I've been in conversation with the superintendent about that and our opportunities with those grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Richardson. Next, we have D21 Education Foundation, Director Nelson.
Yes. So in both of these committees that I serve on, community connections are really important. Like for the Forest Service, for the Forest Service, the connection is we're basically, our neighbor is the Mount Hood National Forest, and so managing that is really important, both for wildfire and in terms of reducing the fuel load that that fire has to burn on, and the fact that we derive an economy from that in terms of timber. And so that directly, those funds, some of them are used to support the schools locally. So that's that community connection. In D21 Foundation, the community connections are like really vast. I was on that when I was first a board member more than 10 years ago. It didn't have the same ability to do what they're doing today. So when I went to this meeting was on Zoom, but when I participated in it, I was just amazed at all of the community members that work to give kids extra stuff that they wouldn't get if it wasn't for the educational foundation. The biggest thing that happens there in terms of money is it has a $2.1 million fund for scholarships for kids to go to college. And so that's just amazing. I think we had something like 16 scholarships last year that we funded. And we're talking thousands of dollars per student that get funded. So that was impressive. We have something called the Booster Club, and their goal was to raise $100,000 this year from the community, and they raised $80,000 of it. And where they're spending the money is for a new scoreboard, and on the fields, and also they made sure that the fields got reseeded and watered properly, so they're looking really good. Another group that these groups are, what do you call them? They're not associates, they're, let's see, the other. Can't remember the term. Affiliates, I think. Anyway, the next person I want to talk about is Mick. He's a music teacher here in the district. And so since COVID, we have not had a marching band. And so over the last, the week of, I guess just a couple of weeks ago, for a whole week, he had the band kids. They all came, they all participated, and they practiced every day except for one day, which the heat was so excessive they couldn't. So what's happening here is that for the first time ever, the students that are on the marching band are going to join the Northwest Association for Performing Arts Circuit, and we're taking the marching band to a scored competition. We've never done that before. Our theme this year is Into the Cosmos, so there's music that they have to prepare for, and that's on YouTube if you are interested in hearing the kind of music that they would be playing. And so they're taking this to various things. So the production that they're preparing for, when they're ready, will be performed 3 times at the McNary Invitational in Salem on Monday, September 25th. Also, the homecoming football game in October 6th, and a Century Showcase competition in Hillsborough Stadium on October 14th. So we're taking the marching band, we're practicing, we're making them practice. The kids are enthusiastic, and so that's a big deal. Let's see. Another group that hasn't happened since before COVID is Sister City. So it used to be, this was an effort that was run by the city of the Dalles, and they kind of let go of that. And so D21 Educational Foundation picked this group up. So they now have started this connection between our sister city in Japan and us in the city of the Dalles. And so the delegation is arriving with 16 junior high school students and 5 high school students from Japan, and they'll be staying with families in the community. And they're arriving and going through all kinds of different greetings and so forth, and meeting everybody from October 25th to the 30th. Then there's another group called the Senior Parent Group. And this is just parents, supporting parents to do things for the community. And so what they have done is they promoted the sale of cherries. As you know, we had a glut of cherries this year because there was competition with California at the same time Oregon had theirs cherries ready. And so there was an abundance of cherries. And so this group actually helped cherry growers to sell their product. And so that happened. That's pretty cool. And that's an example of the community connections there. I was very impressed. That's my report.
Thank you, Director Nelson. Next, we have staff reports from D21 Education Association representative and North Wasco Education Support Professionals representatives. Anything? Okay. So we'll move on to new business. Board appointment for Zone 5 school board position. We'll open it up for any deliberation, motion, comments.
Sure. First of all, I just want to thank all 5, Annaline, Patrick, Joel, Minnie, Andrew. Thank you for expressing interest and putting yourself out there. It's not easy. I can have firsthand experience with that, right? Haven't been up here. So I just appreciate your willingness to step forward and willing to serve in this capacity. So with that, just, I think in general, everyone showed tonight that they're here for the right reasons. Wanted to come alongside us to support the tall order of providing the best education that we can for our kiddos. We've got a good mix of people for us to consider tonight. They each kind of bring a different facet. Some have kids in the district, others don't. So I did kind of appreciate that. There's a variety of volunteer that I see kind of throughout all 5. They kind of all do it in their own unique and individual ways. So, I mean, I think we've got a good pool in general. Those are kind of my initial thoughts just on what we've seen tonight.
Anyone else?
Sure. I really appreciate everybody that applied to come here. It's a big deal when you're on a school board. It takes a lot of work. And so you're willing to step up and do the job of a person on a school board member. I applaud you for that. And I was impressed with the different skill sets that you all had, and you had different viewpoints on what a director of the school board is. So, and you had different ideas for solutions of our problems and so forth. So I really appreciate the variety and and your ability to speak well about your passion for working with the schools.
Anyone else? Open it up for nominations.
Chair, I would make a motion to nominate Andrew Hampton for the vacant seat on the board. And my reasoning, I agree with my fellow directors that these candidates all bring a remarkably diverse skill set to this opportunity, and I would encourage them to continue to participate in public service and run for election. I think they have a lot to offer our communities. Andrew specifically, I did not realize this until we heard from him today. I'm struck by his lived experience of learning challenges, and I feel like he complements the board with touch points in juvenile justice, which we don't have, and also brings some union experience. I know Adrian brings that as well. So it feels that that's a perspective and perhaps a facet and a voice that we don't have.
I'd like to nominate Patrick, and I'm going to ruin your last name, Urain. Oh, okay. I like that he's been in the community. He was a teacher. He was a teacher assistant. He's been a volunteer and has shown as a umpire how to handle stress, because I've seen you in action, and I think he would be a good addition to our board.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I kind of had two people that kind of rose to me, but I would like to nominate Joel Vaught for appointment of the position.
Any others? So we'll need a second on one of them? Or all of them?
Chair, I would second Joel also as a candidate. I agree with the directors that these are excellent candidates, and I see that he would be a good addition to the board. So I will rescind my nomination and second Joel.
Any other seconds? All right, so we'll take a vote on Joel Vaught. Director Elledge?
No.
Director Nelson?
Yes.
Director Aparicio?
Yes.
Director Richardson?
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. Do we have the? Yeah. So congratulations, Joel. If you want to come forward. If you want to come up to the front. Yep. Can you spill your mic? Fun part. Okay, repeat after me. That's why we have such a hard time. I state your name.
I, Joel Vaught,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon and the laws thereof,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon and the laws thereof,
and the policies of the North Wasco County School District.
and the policies of the North Wasco County School District.
During my term,
I
will faithfully and impartially discharge the responsibilities of the office of the school board of the office of school board member to the best of my ability.
will faithfully and impartially discharge the responsibilities of the office of school board member to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Get in a seat. One of these. I got one. Okay, next point of business is board appointment. I'd like to request to appoint Director Aparicio as the board representative and spokesperson as it relates to matters regarding the bond measure the school district is pursuing in November. Take a motion on that.
I move to appoint Director Aparicio as the board representative and spokesman as it relates to matters regarding the bond issue the district is pursuing in November.
Second.
Right. Motion by Director Nelson, seconded by Director Richardson. For a vote,
Aye.
Director Nelson,
Aye.
Director Aparicio,
I'll abstain.
Director Richardson,
Aye.
chair votes aye as well. Oh. Director Vaught.
Yes.
Not yet.
Yes.
Almost missed it. I'm not going to add that to my list. Okay, next we have board appointment for a request to appoint Director Richardson as board representative to North Wasco County School District stewarding body as part of the Oregon Department of Education's SIA intensive program the district is currently participating in.
I move to appoint Director Richardson as the board representative to North Wasco County School District stewarding body as part of the Oregon Department of Education's SIA intensive program the district is currently participating in.
Second.
Motion by Director Nelson, seconded by Director Aparicio. Director Elledge,
Yes.
Director Vaught,
Yes.
Director Nelson,
Yes.
Director Aparicio,
Yes.
Director Richardson,
Abstain.
chair votes yes. Next, we have OSBA summer board conference report. I'll turn it over to Director Richardson and Director Elledge.
Thanks, Chair. I'll provide this report with help of Director Winelledge. We attended the OSBA Summer Conference and pre-conference training day. It totaled about 20 hours of conference and training time each. Thank you for sending us. I am really happy to report Director Winelledge completed and was awarded the Bronze Leadership Institute certificate. So I think congratulations. That's a proud thing for our district. During the conference, I was able to complete the final training for the Gold Leadership Institute certificate, which I'll receive at the fall conference. A few updates and pearls from the summer conference. The legislative update you heard in my LPC report, in brief updates to the public meetings laws with reasons to have executive session to include board safety and cybersecurity. We attended board self-assessment training and feel this was a really good goal
to set for ourselves. Perhaps this will be a discussion topic in our upcoming retreat. The board, District 21 North Wasco District 21 will qualify by population density to participate in the new OSBA Rural Caucus, which will be voted on and ratified at the OSBA annual meeting this fall. This means there's going to be roughly $20,000 in boardsman scholarships funds to pay for conferences and training, so we can qualify for that based on our size and population density. The keynote speaker spoke on equity and left us with this message that the single shared belief that all students can and will learn measurably impacts student outcomes in a positive way. If you have any questions about our attendance or things that we picked up, please reach out to either myself or Director Winelledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Richardson. Next, we have personnel reports, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Bernal.
Okay, I have two items of business tonight. The first one is the 2021 English Learner report, which is the statewide report, which takes a look at how our English learners are doing statewide, not ours as in North Wasco's, but statewide, how our English learner demographic looks as a state. And so, as you saw in that report, you don't see North Wasco in that report because it's at a glance of the whole state. But I have also, and thank you, Director Winelledge, for your follow-up after reading the report. She requested some additional information in terms of, so what does that look like for our district? What do our English learner demographics look like? So tonight I have for you just a report that looks at that. And then as we dive into our PLC work this year, our professional learning communities, and we do a deep dive into our data, we will bring back to you also how do our English learner subgroup perform academically. So that's to be continued. But just a required report, there's no action required. It's required that we present it. Are there any questions? No questions? Okay. Okay. Part two, I was hoping, so this week we are welcome back staff, and we're engaged in a lot of professional learning this week. Staffs both at their sites with their administrative teams, and then also continuing our restorative practices work and our journey into that work. And so this week everyone's having a refresher training, and I was hoping that we could have done a work session with the board. However, we had our Zone 5 applicant stuff come up, so weren't able to do that, but I thought it would be advantageous to, because our consultants are here through tomorrow, to invite them to talk briefly just about our restorative practices journey and the work that we're doing. So I'd like to invite Joanne and Pat up to come on up, and they're going to talk a little bit just about our restorative practices work.
I'll give you a look. It is such an incredible honor to be with you tonight, and we want to say from our perspective, we come from Connecticut, where our state has just legislated that all schools will begin to work this way, because we know that it helps kids succeed. And we're very, very proud of that. Pat's a former superintendent. We've all both retired a number of times, but we are so privileged to be here tonight. And just wanted to share with you a little bit of what this work is about, and maybe possibly dispel a few myths. So you want to say anything? Or just...
No, just good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm really happy to be here and very happy to have had this week in the Dalles. We're looking forward to tomorrow and completing the training and figuring out how we harness all the power of so many of your folks who are trying a lot of these strategies with students.
So in 15 minutes or less, we'd like to introduce this work, maybe dispel a few myths, and we'd be more than happy. We know how precious your time is to answer questions, but if you want to move it along there. First of all, we'd like to acknowledge that this is a very confusing label. And it's confusing at best, unfortunate at worst, because there's actually two words, and people immediately zoom into the word restorative. But the bulk of the work is not about restoration. It's about building wonderful relationships with kids, with colleagues, and building a wonderful community. Because if you don't build it, there's nothing to repair. Okay? And I'm going to read this through so there won't be cognitive dissonance, but school administrators know that educators who naturally and intentionally create wonderful relationships with their students and their parents and guardians and build and nurture a positive classroom community, which we call climate, are the same educators who experience the highest academic achievement. It's the same group. It's a one-to-one correspondence. And we travel the world, I mean, not the world, but the country, and we ask this question without, asking administrators before we start, is this the case? And they all say yes. So if this is the reality, then this provides the best theory of action for overall student success and district and school improvement. So all learning is relational. Students don't care about what you know until they know you care. The myth is that we either teach or we focus on relationship building, which is very wrong-headed. All instruction should be conducted through the lens of relationship building. And what we mean by that, very simply, is after a direct instruction lesson, rather than having kids, pore over a problem by themselves, work in triads, work with a partner, write that paragraph together, do that problem together, because there won't be any less learning, but they're also learning how to get along and work together and so on. And we've seen such success with that. So it's not about building relationships or instruction. It's about doing both at the same time. So there's really only two goals when you're working restoratively. Build relationships and community, and then repair them when harm has been done. That's it. Very simply, conceptually. So we thought we'd bust a few myths by sharing some analogies with you. If you can see this, go back, yeah, thank you. If you can see the slide there, there's a big old tree that's fallen on a house. And when you have damage to a house, if you have a strong house and a tree falls, you can remove the tree, you can repair the damage, and you'd never know that a tree ever fell there. But if a tree falls and there's no house, there's nothing to repair. So this is a metaphor for the importance of building that wonderful climate and community and those relationships. So if you build them, then they can be repaired. So another aspect of this is really a growth metaphor, because this is less about what you do than who you are. And so once you grow to become restorative, if you think about it, when any of you woke up this morning, the last thing you thought about was, should I be 12 today? Should I be 15 today? Because that's not something we have a choice about. And once you live the way we're talking about in all of the walks of life, you don't go back, because it's more successful, productive, it's a happier place to be, okay? But we love this metaphor for it. We call it the family model. I'm sure many of you have children, multiple children, if not grandchildren, and so on. And if you think about it, they're best described as being frenemies. Sometimes they can't get enough of one another, and sometimes they're having an all-out brawl on the living room carpet because they're so angry at one another, and they're kicking and they're calling names and they may be pulling hair and so on. It's inevitable. We've all experienced this. But at the end of the day, in a family, we may separate them, we call that chill time, and give them time to calm down. But the last thing we do in a family is run to the bookcase where we have that very worn and torn family handbook that automatically opens to page 23 that says, wow, calling names, pulling hair, kicking, that's 3 days out of the family. We don't suspend out of families. Sometimes we may give them time, but we always bring them back together, whether we do that well or we do it poorly. We're a family. There's only one table we eat around. There's only one vehicle that takes us places. We are a family. We work it out. So embracing restorative practices is really working on the family model. Will there be harm? Will there be conflict? Will there be disagreement? Absolutely. That's part of life. But at the end of the day, we've got to figure out how we can work together. Because as a board of community members in your families and communities and work jobs, we all have disagreements with individuals, but we have to learn how to get along and peacefully coexist. So this is providing individuals, kids, as well as adults, skills to be able to do that, to mend the harm. May not be best friends, but to be able to get beyond it and work together successfully. But there's another aspect, one more time, I'll that's okay, no, it's good. I'm usually the one with the clicker, so it's good, don't worry. There's another aspect of the family model, and that this is not just for schools. This makes you a better human being. I wish I knew what I knew today when my kids were little. They're now in their 30s. I think I would have been a better parent. I think we could have wound our way through adolescence a little bit better, but I know now, and I try to be restorative with them as we've grown. Okay, now you can change. Thank you. One of the very often displayed myths is people think that when you're working restoratively, kids get away with stuff. They're not held accountable. And we want to be very emphatic that that is not the case. If kids are getting away with something, that is not working restoratively. We're going to hold them accountable, but we want to hold them accountable in a way that changes behavior, that where they can feel they have some skin in the game. Give a kid a choice between serving a few days of suspension or making it right with the human being that they harmed. They will choose suspension every time because that's easy. What's hard is to meet with that person, listen to the harms that they've done, and be able to say, I'd like to get on the other side of this. How can we fix it? That's hard. That's life lessons. And that's what this work is about, because kids have to be held accountable when there are harms that are done. Okay. So we wanted to end with a little data, and with a little bit of time, maybe you can ask a question or two. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have. But this is a graph of a high school in Washington. This is Lincoln High School. I don't know what city it's in Washington, but not too far from here. I happen to grow up in California. We live in Connecticut and work in Connecticut. But if you can just see, even globally, the bars at the far left of each one of these are what was the academic levels of achievement in 2009 and 2010. And I'm not sure if it was mastery scores or GPAs or whatever measure they were using, but there was the point of the levels of academic achievement. By using instruction as the theory of action, maximizing instructional time, making sure that that's what the focus was. The administration then said, no, we need to honor what we know works and implement a theory of action that puts relationships and community building first. And you can see in everything but algebra is the third set of bar graphs there, because there was nowhere else to go but up. Academics dipped a teeny bit. High schools are a hard nut to crack, because high school teachers believe in their content, think that's all important, which it is, but we're teaching kids first and foremost that content. So if you follow that bar graph through, look what happened in years 3 and 4. Academics soared because relationships and community building were the theory of action to achieve higher academics. Okay. This is a high school that is in Connecticut, and this is an email we received. In 2011-12, our high school had chronic absenteeism of 23.7%. With intention, we focused our efforts on improving our school climate and implementing restorative practices in our way of being. Positive relationships were at the heart of everything we did, and we focused on people over problems. Our administrative and school counseling offices became areas of refuge, places where students came to proactively problem-solve situations. This shift had a major effect on our attendance and learning. Our chronic absenteeism has dropped to 3.1%, and our high school was subsequently honored by the state as a school of distinction for academics. I think that tells volumes. Okay. Very recently, we're working with another high school we're working with this whole district, but they had shared this. This is kind of hot off the press. And if you look at last year as opposed to this, well, 2 years ago, the incidents that they had, 1,208 incidents of misbehavior. And you can see that broken out by grades. This year, after implementation of just 1 year, in every grade except 10, and the increase wasn't hugely great, but there are problems there, and they're targeting 10th grade right now. But the total incident drop was down to drop 337 incidents. Okay, you can change it. And you can see, whoops, the location of the incidents, where they went, and they dropped drastically, a total decrease of 298, almost 300 incidences. Again, this is a journey. This doesn't happen when you flip a switch, but very powerful. Okay, keep going. In Stamford, Connecticut, a very large city, where when kids don't show up, they're chronically absent, they are immediately referred to Stanford Alternative Education, which is not too different than Innovations Academy. In other words, they're taken out of the mainstream and put in an alternative setting. As a result of focusing on restorative practices and school climate, in one school year from 1718 to 1819, there was a 55% decrease in the number of days students were absent from school, increasing the number of days students were in attendance. And that principal said, in the subsequent summer, they weren't prepared for how many kids were showing up for summer school. They just wanted to be there. Keep going. This is a middle school in Stamford where they focused on one of the non-negotiables in this work is having an adult that they feel they can go to at any moment for any reason. And they identified a total of 157 kids who they felt were just out there hanging, had nobody to go to. And so with intention, this was the COVID year. So this is October on the left-hand column. In February, a month before schools were closed, they had dropped that number to 40 kids that were no longer connected to school. And what that did, next slide, is it changed their chronic absenteeism rates. It went from 16.5%, and the principal told me it was really lower than 9.7, so basically cut it in half. And the out-of-school suspensions, not because they were just ignoring things, but there was, as he said, there wasn't an out-of-school suspension that we said, oh, that's out of school, that's out of school. They were dealing with them differently. They were dealing with them restoratively by solving the problems and fixing it. They had dropped from 275 to 35. And this was right before schools were closed with COVID. And he said, our target is to make sure that no kids are out of school in the next year. Okay, and then there was COVID. So that's kind of where we ended. We know we had no more than 15 minutes. I hope we haven't violated that. And we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Pat's a former superintendent who required every single one of her faculty members in whatever district she was a superintendent in to be trained this way, and it's had a profound difference. This is very meaningful work. It's not going away. And so you are very privileged, we think, to be in a district that understands the potential value of working in this direction. So.
Yeah, I do. As you were speaking, and I think you even said it yourself, the word that came to my mind was journey. Right? It's not an overnight, like I read a book, I can take a test and answer these questions, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. Right? It's not that. It's a journey. So you showed us the example most close to us, which was I think Lincoln High School in Washington in that graph. My question is, and if you don't have it, it'd be great if you can provide it, but so, they showed the growth from year 3 to 4, but I'm more curious, do you guys have trend data that shows kind of, over time, what does that journey look like? What is to be expected for, districts, schools, what have you, that go through that journey? Like, what does that progression look like from, the introduction of this and the initial trainings, and, what does that, and are there, again, the trend data is kind of what would be interesting to me because, do you see very similar things occurring at certain intervals of time as you move forward, or is it sporadic? That's kind of where I'm trying to grasp.
Well, I just want to acknowledge that that's a great question. It's not like a growth spurt, at least from my perspective, and I've been a superintendent, retired now, finally. I retired 3 times, so, it didn't really work for me, but I am now retired from that, doing this exclusively. But it's not like a growth spurt. It's a gradual change. And what really makes the difference, and what you tend to see, is that as more adults learn these skills and work with their students in this way, students recognize those models and begin to do it themselves. So it is a gradual trajectory, and you start to see students who are coming from elementary schools, going to middle school and expecting this way of dealing with problems and focusing more on their academics. You see it happening in the high schools, and when it reaches those upper, older kids, they start to take on a lot of their school activities and tasks as teachers of the younger ones. So, as Joanne said in the beginning, it's how we become. It's how we do everything we do. And a student's job is to participate and engage and learn. And it's how they do that. They become restorative themselves. So the growth in academics is corresponding.
Well, I will just say that there are some real clear, what we call misimplementation pitfalls. And I think along this journey, to see that kind of trajectory, one of them is looking at data, seeing disproportionality, seeing chronic absenteeism rates that are too high, kids dropping out, whatever bean you want to count, and saying, we've got to discipline different. And so bringing this in as merely a different way to discipline, school districts fail because they haven't tackled the underlying issues of relationship building, community building, and so on. But another key misimplementation pitfall, and one of the reasons why we're so happy to be here with you tonight, is that leadership matters. Leadership at the board level, leadership at the district level, leadership at every single school level matters. Because if leadership isn't on board and really working with people to bring them along, we don't see as good results. So this is about really embracing what this work represents, and that it's rooted in being human. I mean, we all, whenever we step in it, want to be able to tell our side of the story and be able to have a conversation with whoever, manager we're dealing with that said, boy, you angered that parent. They just called the school board. You're into it deep. This is what was going on with me. I lost it, but how can I help get on the other side of that? And that's about giving kids those skills and opportunities to be able to learn how to do that well, as opposed to just bopping somebody because they're angry. That's not a great life skill. So this is really about helping kids with life skills. So we kind of get off on but once you're there, and I can tell you from talking to many, many people across the country, once individuals understand the power of this work, they don't go back. And whether they move into a new district that doesn't support this work, their little classroom is restorative because they know they're going to get higher academic achievement by focusing on relationships and community building, because you get more done. And there's not as many disruptions and so on. So that's kind of a long-winded answer to the question, but the trajectory is really good.
So I have a question. Sure. So let's say in the past your handbooks have a more punitive approach to problems that occur and student solutions. So you've got that going historically in a district, and that's what everybody's bought into. And now you're trying to push towards more restorative and not so punitive. So how do you make that transition successfully about changing those handbooks while at the same time, that's what everybody's used to, and not just completely moving away from some of that. And I'm just saying, it's a process, it's a journey. So you don't just like scrap everything in that handbook to move towards restorative practices. I guess that's what how do you deal with that? How do you?
Well, that's very insightful. And you're cutting to the heart of some of the things that work against folks going to it because they're stuck in that. One of the things that I like to remind people is that that is the way we've disciplined for centuries. If we could really quantify, and we have, the amount of time we are spending in schools correcting, redirecting, asking someone to change their seat, stop talking, move over here, or isolating kids and just sending them out without trying to give them the skills that solve the problem. We're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and I think we all know that that's the definition of insanity, right? So you are absolutely right. Folks are going to look at those handbooks and say, but wait a minute. And so we recommend that there be a committee in school, that leadership leads an effort to really examine the value of those kinds of just punishing kids. So for example, if you're a student who has broken a rule in a school because you're vaping, right? And that's a terrible epidemic that we have in this country now. You're vaping, you're addicted to it, and you have a zero tolerance policy that says if you're caught vaping, you're out of school automatically for a full week or 10 days. I am sure that's a no-brainer for the student. I might as well, if I'm a vapor and I'm addicted to it, I can go home for a week, sit on the sofa. Probably no one is home because everybody's trying to work. There's very little supervision, and vape, right? But keeping them with us, talking with them, asking them to come at a certain time in the day when you're out of class for treatment and so on, we have a chance of stopping that trajectory. So our handbooks and student parent handbooks and staff handbooks are those things that we've got to look at and try to write differently? Yes. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Well, not here. There are boxes over there with the new handbooks. So leadership can take a role in saying, you know what, we have this here. We're going to start thinking about how we might change that trajectory. But let's at least say and commit to trying restorative practices before we move to this. And that's a simple way of moving toward it.
Can I just add one thing about handbooks? And this came into focus for us as we were moving legislation through our state to require every school to become restorative and so on. Handbooks are blind to context. And I don't think I fully I'm old, but I don't think I fully recognized that until we started reflecting on whether it's a bullying statute. That was my job security when I worked at the State Department of Education. Or we're talking about handbooks. It doesn't say, consider whether the child has special needs. Consider whether the child is 5 years old or 15 years old. Consider whether the child has had a lot of trauma or something. It's not about that. It's about saying, you hit him, so you get 3 days of lunch detention, which is totally unrelated, not educational. And I think we can all agree that we're educational institutions, and we should really be about helping kids be better so that when we graduate them, they're ready to be citizens. So the handbooks are flawed in all kinds of ways. And that review, as Pat is saying, whether it's just at the middle school and the high school where that shows up or whatever, it's very simple to, not simple to change hearts and minds sometimes, but simple to say, let's just arbitrarily remove that and say that we're going to follow an equitable process that doesn't change. Every individual who has a problem is always going to be involved in a context-dependent process that will honor their age, their circumstances, and the individuals who are involved in whatever circumstances it is. It's simple in scope. It's hard because people are so wedded, as you so well say, in the old ways.
And one more thing to add to your question, and that is that we don't fault teachers, any of us, for thinking this way. We come by this use of a punitive model very honestly. That's all we get in pre-service. And, we're kind of relentless with our universities and colleges that are involved in teacher preparation, that there has to be more to the development of that curriculum. Because most of us, if we're lucky, that maybe a 6 to 8 week course in classroom management, and it involved a very shiny set of hammers, right? And then the rest of it was about keeping an orderly classroom, keeping it clean, making sure your flag is hanging straight, making sure you have engaging and pretty bulletin boards and all those kinds of things. But no one ever gets a course yet that's at the root of what's happening to the development of our kids, what's happening to brain development, and how we can intercede and influence that.
I have a question. So do you have data where it shows that when you've done this work and they go back home, if the home isn't doing the work, how do you quantify to me, it seems like a slippery slope. If you don't get the parents involved, how are you going to make sure this continues?
You ask a really excellent question. First of all, in our experience, parents want to know this. For 14 years, again, I said my job security was answering the state level bullying complaints. And those parents were rabid. And they wanted kids drawn and quartered and expelled for life and so on. And I would ask them, what's your goal? What do you really want? If they said revenge, I'd say, you can't want that. Beyond that, I'd say, no, really, what's your goal? And if they said, I want the behavior to stop, and I want my child to be safe, which they can want, I'd say, what you're asking for is not going to get that. It will probably make it worse. And they go, what? And then I'd start to teach and explain what this is about. And they were incredibly open to that. Parents need to be educated that there's a different way. I mean, it's easier to be a parent than it is to get a fishing license. And for many kids who are experiencing trauma, abuse, or neglect in one way or the other, the cycle has to be broken. And the only way it's going to be broken is for them to see that there's another way that adults can treat you. And so I think the time is ended. I call myself blunt and direct, but the time has ended when we can throw up our arms and say, well, the parents should have done that. Yeah, except they didn't. And it's impacting the rest of the students and school and their own trajectory. So I think we have an obligation, and we talk a lot about basic needs. Every human being has basic needs. You don't hold a baby, they don't grow. But children need to have all of their basic needs being met, and so many of them come to school without those basic needs being met, and we assume that, oh, we can push that aside. And I think that part of this work is realizing that while we're teaching, we have to meet those basic needs. So yeah, it can get undone, but that doesn't absolve us of a moral and practical responsibility to work in the way we're talking about, because we do change lives. We heard just today of one of the schools, I won't say which school, of a young lady who was really, really a problem in one of the schools. For the first time, yesterday or today, she saw the principal's car in the parking lot. August 1st. I mean, if you want to give more to this, I'm not going to give the details. But on August 1st, she must have been trolling the parking lot, waiting to see that principal's car. And she saw the principal, she went into the school, and she said, "When can I come back? I'm so glad you're here," because that principal worked so hard in this district to make a relationship with a kid who was struggling, who was not easy to deal with, and so on. And that kid wants to be there right now. So the power of this cannot be underestimated. And I like to say, I'm not smart enough to make anything up. We're not coming here with our own whims and wishes. This is long-standing research, and it's growing steam throughout the country because we can't keep thinking that we're going to rubric punish kids out of issues. We have progressive discipline. You do it once, you get a warning. Second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, you're out of the school. If it works so well, why do we need 2 through 6? But it doesn't work. And so we've got to rethink how we're helping kids learn to behave differently and get along. Because in some homes, all they do is swear at one another, hit somebody up the side of the head, do the silent treatment, which isn't good preparation for being good community members. And that's what this work is about.
Thank you for just the passionate way that you speak about this. I appreciate that. You've talked about how this is a journey and our district needs to head in this direction. It's going to take a while. But I think when parents hear about this new practice, they're just assuming that as of right now, all behaviors will be dealt with in this brand new fashion that we need to grow into. And so are there provisions, are there strategies in restorative practices? Is there a hybrid model? How do we work in that interim period?
And you're really, I know that we have a tendency to think through some of the worst possible things that could happen and how do we deal with that? But one of the interesting things about it is there is really no hinterland, but I know we look crazy, but we're really not. We're not crazy. There are times when children have too much trauma, whatever it may be, and their behaviors are off the charts. They're so dysregulated. They've hurt or harmed someone seriously or property or any of those things. There are times when you simply can't hear yourself think. There's no productivity going on and everybody is out of sorts and kids are witnessing that. Then that child has to be removed from that classroom. But how you pitch that is the gray area. You can wag a finger or a fist in their face and say, look at, you broke the rules. We can't stand you here. You're not helpful. We want you out. You're suspended. We're moving for expulsion. You're gone. Or you can say, look at, you have done some serious harm and you're not in a place to deal with it, and neither am I. And neither is that person you harmed or those persons. And everybody else in the classroom is fearful that you're going to do it to them. So I'm going to call your parents. I'm going to ask them to pick you up, and I'm going to give you 3 days. Is it a suspension? Of course it is. Does it have to be reported to the state? Well, if there's a reporting requirement in Oregon, then it has to be reported. But we're letting that student know you're not off the hook. You're not going home to sit and vegetate. You need to be thinking about this because you're coming back in and we're going to solve this problem. We need to know how you're going to make it right. And that's what I would say is a way to go between.
And let me just add one other thing, because there isn't exactly a hinterland, but when people are reluctant to move in this direction, they will use a handbook. It says right here and so on. We get that. But ultimately, what needs to happen is that a child needs to understand that they're going to be held responsible for that effort, and we're going to work together to get to the other side. Now, there are nuances. This is about people. It's hard, but at the same time, it is worth that effort. I want them sitting for those 2 or 3 days, reflecting on what happened and how they can possibly get beyond it. I don't want them reflecting and being pissed off that they've just been suspended for 3 days. That's not productive. So this is very much a process, and we have a colleague who says, this is the real rocket science. I mean, it's simple in its conception, build it and repair it. The nuances are in, when do I have those conferences or conversations? How does this work? But it is infinitely doable, and people who have made it through the hinterland, as you say, are so happy to be on the other side because they see the changes. Usually, one conversation is all it takes. Sometimes it's more than that. Think about the analogy of learning any kind of academic subject. As educators, we never, ever, ever give up. If a child is just not math astute, can't add, then can't multiply, gets to high school, they still can't multiply, we don't say, math, you're done with it. It's off the table. I'm putting it in your CUME file, telling the college, don't ever make you do math. We just keep going at it. This work is like that. You don't think about behavior in the same way you think about learning academics. It's no different. Some kids need more practice, and they just need that. And it's true for our own children.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what's important that I'm hearing you say is that the child is always accountable. Now, the accountability doesn't have to be you're suspended for 3 days and that's your accountability. No, when you come back, now you're accountable to work on your behavior and bring it so that we don't have that problem in the future. And that, I think that's what I'm hearing. That's the long-term.
You're hearing right.
Yeah.
And that's educational. And I think that as educational institutions, as school districts, we have that obligation to kids. You know, sitting out or doing a lunch detention because you ran in the hallway, I don't know what the connection is, but it's not helping us learn any different behavior. And arguably, what you see is when you suspend for misbehavior, it makes it worse. So that's not the goal. The goal is to make our schools safer. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, we have the Chief Financial Officer's report. Kara Flapp?
Hi, how are you? Hopefully you all read through your fabulous financial materials. I know everybody is always waiting for this, but it's pretty short this month. Next month we'll wrap up. The goal is to wrap up fiscal year end for 2023 and start looking at numbers for 2024, which will be a challenging year, but we're up for the challenge and we will get that figured out. The part of the issue is we have to get all the teachers hired in our system and start looking at that information. We're still in negotiations as well. So finishing up at 2023, the current standing of general fund is 52,000. We are still anticipating more funds to come in. We get one more month of tax collection and then that will go in last year and we're still waiting on. We have some small pots that still have to be collected. Some of it's the ESD flow through and E-rate projects, things like that. So I do anticipate it being close to 200,000 or a little below that. So it's better than the alternative. We're waiting on some other payments from grant funds, which totals 217,000. So after those are finalized, we should be able to wrap up the year, see how things look. I did include, and we kind of went over this last month, but the ESSER funds is it's getting kind of squished, so we can probably take off all of that. But ESSER 2 is completely spent as of last year, and we talked about that. The only balance that is left is 33,000, which we got allocated 40,000 for having the NORCOR program. So we got SR2 for JDEP funds. We also have SR3 for JDEP. We are working with the county to come up with some collaborative plans of what we could do with that money. It is also restricted to still be pandemic relief purposes, so that kind of puts a little challenge on it. So we'll see what we can do with that. However, going into next year, which now we're on, I feel like I'm talking too loud. So we'll have staffing of 1.2 million-ish. We do have to allocate 75,000 to cameras. We have a few camera projects. We're wrapping up the final purchase of those, and those cameras should come in, and I think they were about 60,000. So we had a little bit of construction that we have to do for wiring. But the rest of that 400,000 is from Mosier. They still have an allocation of SR3. So I wanted to hit that. Have a few, I'm just still including this for public as well, but the goal is to have a financial work group 3 times a year. I do need to get that going, but still keeping that open. I got you on the list. And if anybody else is interested, or anybody from the community that is listening and wants to participate, let me know. There is one challenge. Well, it's not necessarily a challenge. If you look at the expenditure status report, one part that I didn't anticipate in the nutrition fund, we did overspend that budget. That will be probably in the audit unless they find that it's not substantial. So I'll tattletale on myself on that particular one. The end of the year, we actually, through the year, we're always behind at least a month on what we're paying for meals, and the meal counts were higher than we anticipated, which is the double-edged sword. It's good, but we also have to pay for that. So it's still good, and we get the money back. So it's not alarming in the financial sense. It will be probably listed on the audit. I think that's a really quick, if you look at this particular one, that is a roll-up, you'll see the ending fund balances. They're not quite, like I said, we still have some things we're anticipating, and that's not included in here, but as we go into next year, the ending fund balance will be the beginning fund balance of next year and keep going. So the nutrition fund, I do want to point out, is at 221,000. We're actually only allowed to have 90 days of working capital, which that's far below it, so it's not concerning, but it is good to have that healthy fund balance. We also have replacement funds, which will include curriculum replacement, and in that will be the math adoption. The English adoption was probably close to $1 million, maybe a little more. We're still kind of trickling some of that in, so if math is that expensive, we'll have to be transferring quite a bit next year. So capital projects, we do have a balance of 78,000. We haven't spent any of that. A lot of that, we do have some from the construction excise tax, but some of that's from PUA fees. Any PUA fees for any of the programs we are putting into that fund. Any questions? That's really quick, not very intense, hopefully. Yes, ma'am.
So when you do your accruals for your nutrition, do you do an average, or you do it based on the month before?
What I do is an average of the year, because the months are so, what I do at the beginning of the year is look at how many school days there are and how many we did last year. Okay. So this year it did increase in the last few months, which was great.
And was that because there was also more students than the year before?
There could be. It was pretty, it's kind of a slow, in the beginning of the year, it was higher than at the end of the year. So it kind of ebbs and flows, but there was a little bit. It doesn't necessarily follow pattern, but I think as we get out of the pandemic, people are less nervous about eating in the cafeteria. So we're seeing that increase as well.
Okay, thanks.
One thing, just more of a reminder for us. I thought we're still waiting on TAP grant payments, but are we gonna, for the next cycle, are we gonna get another round of TAP for like the FCA and the long range planning? Because we have the FCA expiring at the end of this year, and then at the end of the calendar year of 2024, our long range plan expires. In terms of the eligibility that we have with ODE for the matching grant, So I think if we put it on our kind of to-do list to get those again, set ourselves up so we can redo those as needed.
Yes, I was actually just talking about that with our grants accountant today, and we are currently in the asbestos grant tab. Well, wrapping up last year's seismic evaluation, but now the asbestos grant. And I'm hoping we are still eligible for the next one, because I think this will be the next year in a row, but I think we should be eligible. But yeah, we definitely on the radar, and we'll apply for it if we're eligible.
Great, thank you, Kara. Next, we have the board attorney's report. Jason?
I don't have anything for you tonight.
Okay. Next, we have action item, second reading, the policy we moved from last month to this month. And the green's got the additional language that was added in, and all the language is optional. Or we can keep some, leave some, or keep some, omit some, or we can just not keep the policy. Keep the policy, just strike the highlighted words. Any comments?
If I could just weigh in on this just briefly, I always think it's a good idea for the board to keep its options open. So this creates that opportunity to do that. It's not mandatory, it's permissive. So if you have that language in there, you don't have to do it, but if you don't have it, you can't.
So if we don't have it, that could not be an element that could be negotiated within a contract? Am I understanding that correctly?
I suppose it's an element that you could negotiate, but this policy this provision is requiring or is allowing you to do that. If you don't put it in there, then you don't have that ability.
Yeah, I mean, I think after our last discussion, I still think that in my worry is just in general terms, this is kind of a very variable thing in the future that just puts out financial risk for the district. Because there's a lot of hypotheticals that could come up. And if I'm understanding correct, even if we don't have the language, if and when we do another superintendent search in the future, we could negotiate that. I know as I thought about this more personally, I don't see this in the private sector. Like that's why COBRA exists. So like if you ever lose your employment, leave your employment, right, you can still get health benefits. I mean, that option exists. And to say that the district would be on the hook, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'd be more in favor of removing all the highlighted language and then leave the rest of it as is.
Anyone else have comments? I'll take a motion then.
I don't understand why would you remove the highlighted? I mean, those are the changes we're making. That's the criticism.
No, that's all bracketed text, so we don't have to adopt that. It's not required by anything legislatively, by statute or anything. That's an option that we have. And what I'm saying is that even if you don't have it, you could still negotiate something. I still think it would be financial mistake on the district's behalf to write that in. Again, like things like COBRA and whatnot exist that like if the superintendent ends up leaving their employment, they would still have the ability to find their health insurance. I think you list that out. I think you open yourself up and us as a district But then it gives them an idea to be like, oh, well, maybe I should weave this into my contract. That makes sense.
Jason, do you have an opinion on that?
So I kind of have the opposite opinion. That's what I'm is I think that it doesn't make it mandatory. I get where you're coming from on that, the plants to seed. But again, it's not mandatory as you negotiate a contract. Whether you include that language or not is up to the board at the time to make that contract negotiation. And it really depends on the circumstances at that moment, I suppose, and what the decision of the thought processes of the board is whether or not they want to include that. I just don't think it obligates you to include it. I do get what you're saying, that it's the possibility that it plants the idea there, but the idea is already planted. By somebody that's negotiating that contract, they're already thinking about that.
Any other thoughts? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the policy with highlighted parts left in there.
Anyone want a second?
There's no second. I'll make a motion to adopt policy CBC, superintendent's contract, but removing all the highlighted text from the language.
I second that motion.
Go for a vote. Director Vaught.
I'm the new guy. I should abstain.
Director Nelson. Director Aparicio.
Aye.
Director Richardson.
Aye. Aye.
I vote aye as well. Public comments? Now we're at public comments. Comments from the audience. Where's it at? The board will accept public comments for the August 24, 2023 meeting. The board is committed to the public comment process and will consider all public comments seriously. Public comments for virtual meetings will continue to follow school board policy BDDH, public participation in board meetings. Public comment options, you can sign up to speak at a meeting. Sign-up sheets will be at the door. Written comments can be emailed to publiccomments@northwasco.k12.or.us. And you can also sign up for public comments via Zoom webinar. And for those wishing to make public comments virtually, please send an email to Cindy Miller at publiccomments@northwasco.k12.or.us by Wednesday before the board meeting, no later than 4 p.m. with your name, screen name, and phone number you will be joining with. You will receive a link to join the meeting and will be placed in a waiting room until your name is called. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board sincerely appreciates your input. Thanks for your participation. With no public comments, we'll adjourn the meeting.